Morning Coffee Tech Chat. There's a lot been happening.
Yeah.
A lot. So we have to start with the big, glaringly obvious thing that has happened, which was Friday, absolute meltdown, IT worldwide outage. I heard somebody quoted that said this is what was meant to happen in Y2K, but has actually happened this time. So I think the reported number is 8.5 million devices that went down.
That's it.
That's it. So this is the thing, right? So when everybody saw that news on Friday, everybody thought, oh, my computer's gonna go offline, my computer's gonna blue screen. And for some, that happened,
Yeah.
right? For a lot, not. For us, ourselves involved on Friday, it was a chaotic mess on Friday, but actual systems didn't fully go down.
No.
But where people are missing the bigger picture is that because CrowdStrike, being one of the biggest cybersecurity firms in the world, protects the back-end infrastructure for so much.
As the monopoly did.
Yes, it's the monopoly, but that's, I think, the bit everyday people and everyday business owners and everyday people that just saw the news and didn't know anything else about it, is that it's not so much that it is going to affect your device right now, especially if you're not using that product that they use, but it's the back end of everything. So hospitals, GPs, we saw flights, airlines cancelled. 1,500 flights were cancelled on Friday. Banks, housing market, which was disrupted because of the CHAP system the day before. Telecoms, where telecom systems went down.
Broadcasting as well.
Yeah, it broadcasting. We saw that with Sky News, where they couldn't run the live Sky News. They had to run a rerun of something because they couldn't broadcast. It's the back-end infrastructure, and it brings up a couple of key points, actually. One is, let's just talk UK, right? That the UK can be crippled so badly by a patch update, because that's what it was. It was an update for a third-party piece of software. It wasn't even a Microsoft update. So it wasn't like we've had before in the past, Microsoft push out a security update,
yeah,
and it causes VPNs to stop working. It causes something to fall over. But we've seen it, Microsoft pushed out updates and it gives them blue screens, right? And you get a blue screen and we have to roll back the update and so forth. It wasn't even that it was a Microsoft update. It was an update from a third party to their piece of software that protects Microsoft infrastructure and global infrastructure at the core.
Yeah, because pretty much even Microsoft is using the same product.
Yeah, to do the protection, because they're one of the world leading cybersecurity companies around, and they have been for a while.
But I saw that this patch update was affecting all devices because it's part of the architecture of Windows as well.
So it is affecting all devices that have a run on the infrastructure that is using CrowdStrike. So for instance, you'll notice it did not affect any one of our devices in the office. We do not use CrowdStrike as our software.
Yeah.
It was said that it is just was an update on a sensor on the software, and actually the file that was uploaded was very, very small. I mean, we're talking kilobytes, megabytes.
It's just a line of the code.
It's a line of code, basically. But
not even, it's just like a comma, misplaced comma.
Misplaced comma, it could have been, I don't know we don't know the full details of what bit was wrong. We just know that it was wrong, and reportedly from CrowdStrike, it was a small little part of the update. It wasn't the whole update. They have now said that they have worked with their clients to get majority of the systems up and running. A large part of the affected devices, was their words, right, are now up and running. But it's the knock-on effect. So it's the effect of, there's 1,500 flights cancelled on Friday, okay? The airline's gonna have to play catch up at some point. So it's not we're now on Monday and the problem's gone away and it's solved. And
no.
The knock-on effect from GPs, the knock-on effect from hospitals, from anybody where the service, they had to deflect stuff and cancel stuff, that knock-on effect could last weeks, months.
Yeah, even months, because it's a lot of backlog. And already the system is crippled.
And all systems, so not even hospital and GPs, but even airline systems, they run with very thin margins for error.
Pretty much there is no margin for error.
Very thin margins for error. The knock-on effect and the backlog that that's going to cause across the board for everybody is incredible.
But I believe that this should be a very huge question mark raised for all of the entities affected. When the system fails at this level, it makes you wonder what's going to happen and how can I do better in the future to mitigate this sort of actions.
I'd imagine a lot of people are asking that question right now. In the higher ups of what's going on, governments across the board, I would imagine they're all asking the question of, it comes back to that thing of 1 point of failure. You know, how we try to drum out 1 point of failure within just talk about our organisation, or how we try to move away from 1 point of failure.
But that's easy to fix, I believe. It just came to me. Because pretty much it's all Windows machine devices that are using a specific piece of software. If you had the policy to keep updates not running for 2 weeks, all this catastrophe could have been avoided.
Or pushed off for 2 weeks.
Or pushed off for 2 weeks. But by then you still have people that don't have these policies in place. And you see like, oh, people reporting, I have this issue after the last update, I get this.
There's so many companies out there, small and medium-sized companies, that still don't have any policies in place. So no IT policies whatsoever.
But you expect for the companies, I mean, it's not companies because they're entities now. Because you talk about the health service. You expect for them to know better. For the financial, you expect for them to know better.
Wasn't it you that said to me that you saw airports had gone back to using whiteboards for planes, and when they were leaving and when they weren't, and cancelled and all that? It's one of those that our lives rely on digital technology more and more and more and more. We are interconnected with everything we do, and it is being shown over the last couple of years when the smallest of things goes down, it causes catastrophe for a lot of people in their lives, right? Across the board. But when the bigger things go down, like our infrastructure goes down, the day before on the Thursday we had OpenReach issues, we had CHAPS issues Thursday night, we then had the whole rest of the outage on Friday. Whether they're interlinked, I'm drawing some conclusions, although telecoms and banking was involved in the CrowdStrike issue. So you can see from the pattern of how things fell as people came online, right? So as the world woke up, it moved around the world. Yeah. But you can see which companies do their patching straight away and which companies have a delay off. Because in the UK, we had OpenReach and the CHAP system go down, all their critical infrastructures, so they did their update straight away.
Yeah.
Right? Then we had the knock-on effect from airlines and everything else that started to wake up and pick up the update and trash their machines.
If a company relies on a server to run 24/7 without stop, obviously those updates will run or not run. And I believe that that's what they're using pretty much. It might be a lucky guess, but I do not know exactly because I don't have exposure to the infrastructure. But for the airlines, that server needs to be 24/7. Those servers needs to be 24/7 up and running all the time. And in many cases, you just run the security updates or you just run the updates and that's it. Yeah. And that never shuts an eye.
But you should be at that size, you should have replication in place. That is on a different trajectory. And I think this is one of the things, I've been thinking about it at the weekends, one of the things that might come out of this, whether we will ever know about it or not, is a different story, but is the fact of you need to be running in order to mitigate against these types of issues. And I'm not talking about the people that cause the issues, I'm talking about the rest of everybody else. If you are reliant on servers and you are reliant on, which we all are in one way or another, whether your technology is in the cloud, whether it is in your office, you are reliant on a server. Somewhere your data is sitting on the server. You need to have replication in place that allows which runs on a different type of updating schedule to your main system. So if you're critical infrastructure, and this is my advice to the government out there and everybody else, if your critical infrastructure requires you to do the updates straight away the minute they come out, you have to have a replicated system of your system running side by side. That is your failover, that is on a 2-week, 14-day schedule for the updates. So that if it causes a screw up here, your IT team flip over to the replicated system, you're up and running, they can figure out what the problem was, they've given themselves a ton of breathing room, which it seems very logical to say, right? Because we work in the industry,
Yeah.
right? And it seems very, even for some people who don't work in the industry, it will seem very logical. Why the hell was that not in place? Why the hell did they not put that in place? Well, especially critical infrastructure. So comms, hospitals, banking system. Why?
Well, I believe it's because where do you cut the budgets usually?
In IT, which is the worst place for you to cut the budget, is IT.
Why do I need this? But people are failing to understand that technology goes in a direction where you have to invest a lot more, a bigger percentage that you used to invest from your profit or from your budget back into IT.
So there's a calculation on that. There's a sum for it. So as your organization grows, doesn't matter what size you are, you can be small, medium, large, whatever size you are. For the small to medium sized businesses, you should be actually looking at investing in your company the same amount that it would cost you for one of your employees for the year in your cybersecurity and your protection, because you should be viewing it as an employee. So the protection for your company, the softwares that go in place, the different resources that have to go in place to give you as much protection as possible, because you can't give 100% protection across the board, otherwise people will be out of jobs, right? But you should be looking at it going, okay, if my average salary across my team is, when I average them all out, it's 30, 40K a year per employee, then that's what I need to spend on protecting my infrastructure and my data. And companies out there won't like it. And I guarantee people watching this now are like, yeah, rubbish, I'm not doing that, don't want to spend that money, don't want to do that. And completely get where they're coming from and completely understand where they're coming from. But if you want to be as protected as you possibly can, you should be looking at cybersecurity and protection. That includes training your staff, that includes making sure softwares are in place, that making sure that the correct firewalls are in place, the correct securities are in place, the correct processes are in place, the correct paperwork, security policies, IT policies, disaster recovery policies, replication of critical services. If you've got a system that is critical, that if it goes down for a day, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is for your company cannot function without, then you have to have a replication of that system in place so that if it goes down, you can throw your application. And that unfortunately costs money. Yeah. But you should be looking at it as an employee. And if you've got a smaller company and your average salary is 25K a year, then you should be spending that on your cybersecurity for the year.
But yet again, the problem came from a cybersecurity piece of software.
It did.
Designed to protect.
It did. Yes. This is very true.
It's going to tarnish their reputation massively.
It's going to tarnish cybersecurity. It's not even their reputation. So their stock price dropped by 16 billion on Friday. It started to creep up. I think on late Saturday when I was looking at it, they were down by about 6 billion, right? Which to us is a lot of money. To them, they're a 80 or 90 billion pound company. It's still a fair chunk of money. So yes, it tarnishes them. Yeah. The knock-on effect for us and for people that work in the industry, knock-on effect is it's going to tarnish cybersecurity softwares and the pushback that is already there from business owners and managers of businesses to go, yeah, but I don't want to spend the money on this because I don't want that type of problem to happen. In the grand scheme of things, that was a tiny issue that caused that problem. It's not the first and it won't be the last that happens, but it's what happens with technology.
Yeah.
It's a known, it happens.
Is a very good opportunity for backup and recovery piece of software to advertise now. Is if you had something like Veeam or...
Oh, even if you had a full desktop backup recovery system in place, like for your local user desktops, instead of having to go through the process, so Microsoft's now brought out a tool specifically for repairing this issue, right? They released it over the weekend. CrowdStrike gave out instructions on booting the machines. This is why it was such a problem, because to bring them back online, somebody physically had to be in front of the device, reboot the machine to command prompt to remove a file.
Yeah.
Remove the file, delete the file, reboot the system comes back online, right? Windows system comes back online. This is why it was such a big problem, because it hit Friday, right? So one, who pushes updates on a Friday, right? They probably thought it's a really small update. It won't cause any problems. Just push the update, it'll be fine. Done. Who doesn't test their updates in a working environment? Because that looked like an untested patch that went out. Because if they'd have tested it in a full-on working environment, it would have broken something and they would have seen that. Their big thing is if CrowdStrike, so CrowdStrike, where the number of 8.5 million comes from, the problem being there is that so many IT companies run on remote only, right? There's so many. In the UK and America do it a lot, remote only. They don't have the resource to put boots on the ground to go and deal with those devices. The end user doesn't have the expertise to do it. So it has to be somebody with some expertise that can put their hands physically on the device. Because that was the workaround, that's why it drags, that's why it will take so much time, because there's 8.5 million devices and a fair chunk of those are going to be servers, right? They're not all going to be desktop devices.
I would love to think that's just 8.5 million devices.
Oh, it'll be more. It'll be more. I think 8.5 million was what CrowdStrike covers, device-wise.
Was this just in America or just all over?
This is all over the world, so this is world outage news, it didn't give specifics for regions.
I find it very hard to believe it, because we are like 8 billion people. Let's say how many companies are in the world. 8 million is nothing, it's like 0.01%.
Let's find out. Estimated 8.5 million devices worldwide. But that's only the actual blue screen error.
Yeah.
That's not the knock-on effect. So for instance, we were sat here on Friday and I couldn't get into my LinkedIn. I couldn't log into my LinkedIn. Couldn't log into some services, like online services, because their back end is down. And if their back end is down, then the knock-on effect is to all the small, medium-sized businesses out there that have nothing to do with CrowdStrike. That knock-on effect is not that you're going to see blue screens, but so my Teams closed out on me 4 times on Friday. I was middle of a video call, whole Teams restarted. Reported from a client of ours, same with their Teams. Outlook was reporting that it was trying to update, but would sit there. You had a couple, I think, with your team, where Outlook was sat there just updating, not doing anything.
Yeah, there were some issues with Outlook as well.
It's the knock-on effect, you see. So it's not just the blue screen. Oh, they had a blue screen. It was an IT outage around the world, and it was 8.5 million devices affected. No, 8.5 million devices affected that had that technology in place. How many millions of devices were affected, or how many millions of employers and employees and companies were affected with the residual knock-on effect?
Oh yeah, it's a huge loss. It's a huge loss. I was just looking for an article because I saw over the weekend Microsoft decided to close an entire department within Microsoft.
Was it their update department?
No, it was the Department of Equal Rights and Inclusion. So in my mind, I mean, I believe it's like probably having the people, not the right people in the right places. They realize like, oh, in this sort of outages, I have John here. It's not quite right for the job, but I have him on the job because I have to include him. So I think they kind of restructure this bit.
The residual effects for what has happened on Friday we're going to feel them for the next few weeks, if not month, maybe a little bit longer. You're going to get delays in services. For 100%, hospital schedules are not going to be completed and up and running straight away, nor are GPs, because can you think of how many GPs had to reschedule everything at the weekend, Friday, and not knowing what was going to happen this week, so they would have rescheduled other appointments. Airplane lines are coming back online, but they've got 1,500, just at a minimum 1,500 flights that need to be rescheduled. Plus the knock-on financial effect that it's going to have, because the airlines would have had to pay for hotels for everybody. There's a knock-on effect for everything, and we're going to feel it for a while. Unfortunately, it's not going to just disappear overnight or over the weekend. We are going to continually feel the knock-on effects from it. I think the best advice that I can give to every small to medium-sized business out there that has felt the effects of Friday, or it has caused them any type of problem from Friday, is one, if they're still going through it, is to reach out to an IT company that can assist them to get themselves back up and running. If they're not going through it, but they've come through the other side of it, is to look at your internal policies and procedures to make sure that you are covering your own backsides. So if it means replication, duplication of their critical systems and they don't have them in place, get it in place. Yeah. If it is just that you were one of the ones that was affected by your computer blue screening, simply sorted by making sure that you've got an entire backup of your machines. Because it would have been quicker for an IT bod to go, yes, roll back to done, blank from a duplicate, download, install, up, running, functioning. It is that thing of looking at what is critical to your business, as in, if you didn't have it, you would be at a standstill. Those things need to be backed up, duplicated, or on a different schedule for updating to what your other systems are. That would be my key take from the weekend, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a hard lesson for everybody. A lot of companies learned some hard lessons the hard way, and sooner or later we'll see the impact of it, because at the moment it's still early stages.
Very early stages. We're not through the woods on it, but we will be. Yeah. But it is that thing of take a look internally on your systems, talk to your IT professionals to find out what else you could do to mitigate from this happening in the future. Because will it happen again? Most probably, in some way, shape or form. Might not be the same company, might not be the same issue, but in some shape, way or form, it will happen again, and there will be outages. You need to make sure that you're covering, as a business owner. For me, for instance, as a business owner, I have to make sure that I'm covering my own interests, which is the company. What do we need to put in place to make sure if this happens in the world again, that it doesn't affect us, or if it affects us in a marginal way rather than a catastrophic money-losing potential company-losing way.
It makes me look at Microsoft, how fragile it can be sometimes.
Sometimes. But this is the thing when you grow really big and massive. Again, reliant on humans, and unfortunately, things can break.
I'm going to see something that you can dislike.
Go for it.
That's why I like the iOS in some instances.
What's that?
The Apple devices. His face. Yeah, but think about it. If you think about it just a little bit, for a business level, yes, you can't use it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw lots of memes at the weekend of Apple users in offices stood with their Apple laptops in front of cameras, just dancing and having a laugh because their systems were absolutely fine. although CrowdStrike does do protection for Apple devices as well. So it could quite have easily happened to Apple, just happens that it affected Microsoft. We are in a digital world. We run on technology. There is no getting away from that now. It's very hard to do any type of business without some sort of technology in place. And as we are more and more reliant on technology, it is not good enough to say anymore, my business is protected by the big boys, like the CrowdStrikes and the Microsofts, it's protected by them, and abdicate that responsibility to the bigger powers and go, oh yeah, well they're the market leaders, so therefore they must know how to protect. That is not acceptable behavior anymore. You have to look as a business owner internally to go, what do we need to put in place to protect ourselves no matter what happens? And if you'd like some more assistance and some more help, hit that like, subscribe, and hit that bell so that you're notified of when our videos come out. Or visit our website if you would like to know more, or you need an IT professional, visit our website. The link is in the description. Email help@tccb.co.uk if you require any type of assistance, or you would like to start a preparation to prep against and mitigate against these future issues that you